Hey guys, I'm Loy and I'm going to introduce you to Ruby on Rails via building a blog application. I expect that you already have Ruby, Rails, and PostgreSQL installed. I'm using Ruby 2.4, Rails 5.1, and PostgreSQL 10.1. The first thing we need to do is generate our Rails project. We do that by running Rails new, the name of our application, and an extra argument for what type of database, -d dash PostgreSQL. We can see that Rails gives us the font, our master application.js, master application.css, model files, views, as well as controllers. There's a ton of other files that are generated, but we're not going to worry about those for now. The two other ones that we would need to know and understand is routes, config routes right here, as well as schema. Where is that at? I'll show you in a second. Afterwards, after you create a new file, Rails also bundle installs all the necessary dependencies. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move into our working directory, open up my text editor, and we can see that everything looks okay, but we should go ahead and confirm that. So I'm going to start the Rails server by running Rails server, or S for short. Now we can open up our browser and navigate to localhost 3000. You should see a screen like this if it's working. Okay, everything looks good. So remember, we're building a blog application. The first thing we need to do is go ahead and create a controller. The controller is going to be responsible for managing data for us and providing it for the view. Oh, one quick introduction to the working directory. The application folder is where we're going to spend most of our time. Inside of here, we can see our model, view, and controller. We don't have any models, views, or controllers yet, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to open up a new tab and generate a controller. We do that by running Rails generate controller, post, index. Post here is the argument for what the controller is going to be named. Index is going to be the action which we want to generate. Okay, it looks like my Rails generator has frozen, so we can run spring stop to get it working again. Let's go ahead and stop this. I'm going to run spring stop. That should stop the process that's running in the background. And then we're going to run the controller again. We're going to generate the controller again. Post index. Okay. So we can see that this post controller was just made, as well as a corresponding views for our posts. Let's go ahead and add everything. Alrighty then. So everything looks good here. The next thing we're also going to do is go ahead and update our routes file. This is actually located inside of config routes.rb. You can see that when we ran a generator, Rails gave us a new route out of its magic. But we want to route our application to post index. Earlier when we went to localhost 3000, our root route was this default page, but we need something different. So let's go ahead and start our Rails server again. Now when I refresh the page, you should see it routed to a different page. Excellent, this is correct. So what are we looking at right here? We're looking at generated HTML, and we can confirm that by using our Google developer tools. It's an H1 tag and a P tag. So which file is responsible for generating this? So a vast oversimplification of an MVC framework is that the first thing that happens when you go to the web application is that the application determines whether or not it understands the route. So it looks at routes.rb and then it says, hey, do I understand this route? And it does, because the root maps to post index. You can see that we have a post controller here inside of our controllers, as well as index inside of post views. So the next thing Rails does is looks at this controller and it looks at the matching index, and the index is found. So by default, it's going to look for a corresponding file name inside of views, which is right here. Inside of our post controller, there is an index file. And here you can see that the HTML that was returned to the client. We can also confirm this by looking at our server log. Get root matches to post controller index action HTML. Okay, so that's looking pretty good, but this page is kind of boring. Remember, we're building a blog application, so in our index action, we should see a list of posts. Okay, in order to save to our database, we also need to create a model. So I'm going to run a generator for a model. Rails G model posts, and this is where we specify the different attributes. So we'll say that posts have titles. The default is string, so we don't have to give it an argument of data type. And the other attribute of posts will be, and this will be data type text, because we want a big body of text available. Okay, so we can see that inside of our models folder, post was generated. There's nothing in it right now, but that's okay. Okay, so the very next thing we're going to do is update this index action. We're going to say post index. Actually, no, let's give it a better name. CoderSchool blog. And we should see this update. Oops, I forgot to run a migration. I'll stop my server by running Control-C, and then I'll run Rails db create db migrate. Okay, I've already got this made. Okay, so I just dropped the database because I've already got a database by that name, a table by that name, and we'll do it again. We can run multiple database actions in one line if we want to. I'll start the server again. Let's go and refresh the page. Okay, so we do have an update. So remember that a controller has the responsibility of collecting data and providing it to the view. And I'm going to prove this to you. So what we're going to do right now is cause an error and then fix it. And that will prove to you what I'm trying to say. So what's important to understand here is that inside of an .html.erb, and we write that by writing erb tags. We'll do people, we'll do @people.each do person, close this block, and then put a person. And this is going to fail. Rails is going to complain undefined method each for nil class. The reason why this is complaining this is because @people is nil. It doesn't exist. So how can we fix that? If you started the controller, then you're right. So we'll go with our post controller and we'll define this variable. Loy, Charles, Harley. Excellent. Ruby code was embedded inside of an HTML file, parsed to generate HTML, and then served to the client. Okay, so that's not very useful for us right now. What we should be doing is creating a post variable, which will grab all of the posts inside of our database. I'm going to go ahead and fix this, and we'll change this to posts, post, and post. When I refresh this page, we're going to see nothing. Why is that? The problem is we don't have any posts yet. So we're going to use a tool that Rails gives us, which is amazing, and you're going to get to know, you're going to become very familiar with. It's called the ROS Console. You can see that the ROS Console is open because it's telling us which version of Ruby is working right now. So I'm going to create a new variable to work with by instantiating a post object. So p is equal to post.new. We can see that this line generated, and it has a couple of attributes such as ID, title, body, created at, and updated at. I'm going to change the title to working on a CoderSchool, working on a Ruby on Rails web application. I'm going to change the body to Ruby and Rails makes developing web applications amazingly easy. And then I'll save. Okay, so it's true. Excellent. I'm going to refresh. Oops, I made an error. So what we want to do is now do post.title because we're looking at the title attribute of our post. Okay, excellent, works. We'll do one more thing. We want to go ahead and add this to h1 tags as well as include p tags. And inside of this, we'll go ahead and do our post.body. I'll save it and I'll refresh. And we can see that it's looking good. Okay, so I'll do one more. Add a horizontal rule. Okay. And we'll do one more post. p.title is equal to learning to code is super fun. We'll say our body is equal to I'm going to master this. Oops. Let's do that one more time. Okay, I made a couple errors, but that's okay. This is just code. We can always correct them. So let's go ahead and clear this window so we can see better. And we'll examine P. Okay, let's just go ahead and save it. So I'll refresh the page. We can see that we now have 2 posts. Excellent. Okay, so now that we've got our basic app up and running, let's go ahead and commit our work so far. I'll add everything and create a message. First post created with body. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add Bootstrap for making our application more beautiful. And then after that, we're going to take a small break. Okay, adding Bootstrap to our Rails application is super duper easy. All we have to do is go to GitHub and then find the Bootstrap Ruby gem. You can easily do this by simply Googling it. It should be one of the first responses. So you can see right here, it's the top result from Google. And on this GitHub page, you'll find the instructions that allows you to add Bootstrap to your project within a minute or two. The first thing we'll do is copy this line right here, gem bootstrap with the version. We'll add it to our gem file. If you're new to Ruby and don't know what a gem is, you can just look at it as a bundle of code which someone has already written for you to use. Save. Run bundle install after restarting our server. Instead of running bundle install, you can just run bundle, by the way. And it seems as if I already have it. so it didn't have to go out and fetch it. Right here, I got it right there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is copy this line at import Bootstrap. And we're going to change one file in our project. Application, or inside of app, assets, style sheets, application.css or SCS or CSS. We're going to delete everything, save it, and then rename the file extension to SCSS. That's going to give our CSS more power. So at this point, I can just restart the server. And if everything went according to plan, then we should see some styling changes with the text right here. Wait for it. There we go. So we do see that Bootstrap is up and running. And good work. We've gotten pretty far through the application. The next thing we're going to do is take a short break. And then when we come back, we're going to go ahead and finish up the main requirements of this project.